Today on Orthodox Lens, we explore the story of Jael and how her righteous actions led to the defeat of the Canaanite general Sisera. In the Bible, Jael might be a lesser-known figure, but her story is filled with lessons in faith, courage, and obedience. So join me as we discuss who Jael was, why her story matters, and most importantly, what we can learn from her example. Who was Jael? To understand Jael, let's start with the context of her story. Jael was the wife of Heber, a Canaanite, and the two of them lived in a tent. The Canaanites were a nomadic tribe related to the Israelites through Moses' father-in-law, Jethro. Heber and Jael's decision to pitch their tent close to the battlefield was significant and foreshadowed Jael's future role in the conflict. The story takes place during a time when the Israelites were oppressed by the Canaanites. Under the leadership of the ruthless general Sisera, the Canaanite army had a massive advantage with their 900 iron chariots. For 20 long years, they dominated the Israelites, causing them to cry out to God for help. In response to their pleas, God raised up Deborah as both a prophetess and a judge over Israel. Deborah's role was crucial. She delivered God's messages and provided guidance to the people. When she met with Barak, a military leader, she told him that God had already decided to deliver Sisera into their hands. However, there was a twist. God had revealed to Deborah that the enemy would be defeated by a woman, but nobody knew who this mysterious woman was. Fast forward to the battle scene. Barak, accompanied by 10,000 soldiers, began their attack on the Canaanite army. Despite their large numbers, the Israelites faced many obstacles and Sisera found himself on the brink of defeat. With no other options left, he fled on foot, alone and exhausted. That's when fate intervened, or perhaps it was destiny. Sisera stumbled upon the tent of Heber, where Jael resided. He sought refuge there, hoping for protection. What happened next changed the course of history. Upon seeing Sisera, Jael didn't hesitate. Acting on divine inspiration, she welcomed him into her tent, offering him hospitality by spreading a blanket over him and providing milk to drink. She also instructed him to stay at the entrance and not let anyone in. Sisera, exhausted and vulnerable, listened to her instructions and fell asleep. Now, what did Jael do next? According to the biblical account in Judges, chapter 4 verse 21, Jael took a tent peg and a hammer, ordinary tools used for everyday tasks. She approached the sleeping Sisera softly and drove the peg into his temple until he died. In a single moment, the mighty Canaanite general who had terrorized Israel for years lay slain at the hands of an ordinary tent-dwelling woman. Why does Jael's story matter? As we reflect on Jael's story, it's essential to ask ourselves why her story continues to resonate even today. Let's explore some reasons. First, Jael reminds us that God can use anyone. Jael was not a warrior, a politician, or a religious leader. She was a tent-dwelling woman. Her story demonstrates that God doesn't call people based on their background or profession. He calls them based on their willingness to obey. Second, Jael's story highlights the importance of hospitality. Jael welcomed Sisera into her tent and offered him kindness and rest. This act of hospitality was not only morally right, but it also led to the fulfillment of God's plan. Third, Jael embodies courage and righteousness. Despite Sisera's status as a powerful enemy, Jael acted boldly to protect her people. She didn't hesitate to strike him down when it was necessary, showing that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph of righteousness over fear. Fourth, Jael's story teaches us to look beyond human appearances. Sisera, though mighty and successful in war, was ultimately defeated by a woman considered weak in society. This teaches us not to judge others based on superficial appearances, but to look deeper into the strength and potential that lie within. Finally, Jael reminds us that God's plans are often surprising. The way God chose to defeat Sisera was unconventional. Through an ordinary tent-dwelling woman, God demonstrated that His ways are not our ways, and He can accomplish His purposes in ways we never imagine. What can we learn from Jael today? Jael's story offers timeless lessons that can guide us in our own lives. As we conclude our discussion, let's consider some key takeaways. First, Jael teaches us that God has a plan for each of us. Just as He chose her for a special task, He has a unique purpose for each of us. The question is, are we willing to obey and follow His plan, no matter how challenging it may seem? Second, Jael's story highlights the importance of obedience and faithfulness. She didn't hesitate when God called her to act. Her willingness to obey led to the defeat of Israel's enemies. Obedience is a cornerstone of our relationship with God. It allows us to fulfill His will and contribute to His plans for our lives. Third, Jael embodies the spirit of hospitality. Welcoming others with warmth and generosity is a reflection of our faith. By showing kindness to those in need, especially strangers, we open ourselves to God's blessings and become instruments of His love. Fourth, Jael's courage inspires us to stand up for what is right. In a world that often values compromise and peace, Jael reminds us that sometimes standing up for righteousness requires boldness and determination. Finally, Jael teaches us not to underestimate God's power. Through her seemingly insignificant act of taking a tent peg and a hammer, she accomplished something extraordinary. God can use the simplest means to accomplish His purposes. As we continue to reflect on Jael's story, let us embrace the lessons she offers. May her example inspire us to seek God's purpose for our lives, to obey His voice, to practice hospitality, to be courageous, and to trust in God's power to work through us. Remember, God sees not only the weaknesses in us, but also the potential He has placed within us. With God, all things are possible. Let us commit to living lives that honor Him, serve His purposes, and bring light into the world. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Orthodox Lens. We hope you found insight and inspiration in the story of Jael. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Your engagement helps us continue to share these faith-filled stories. Also, click on the bell icon to get notified when new episodes are released. If you have any comments or thoughts you'd like to share, please leave them below. We value your input and would love to hear from you. Until next time, may the wisdom and teachings from Orthodox Lens bring light and understanding into your life. Walk in Christ's love and peace.